Throughout the last few years, the topic of vaccinations have been an exceedingly controversial topic, especially when it comes to young children and infants. In my opinion, I believe this is mostly due to the COVID era when the COVID vaccination came out. Many people were very on the fence about the idea of new vaccinations, especially due to the fact that there had been less testing than most other vaccinations. Many parents argue that they shouldn't be required to vaccinate their children, especially for school. However, parents truly, in my opinion, don't realize vaccination rules and recommendations are in place to encourage vaccinations and to further prevent the spread of vaccine preventable diseases. And in some cases, they may completely obliterate the disease. So in my opinion, parents should be obligated to take the necessary precautions to keep their children safe in the community by vaccinating their children before they enroll them into school or daycare. And I believe that these rules should be enforced on only the necessary vaccinations, not arguing against the options for flu and COVID, etc., those types of things. I'm talking about the ones that are specifically that most schools already require. I'm talking about the vaccinations that are already mostly mandated in most other schools. I'm just saying it's good that they're there and that they are enforced. So obviously we know vaccinations have a lot of primary health benefits. Vaccinations have been a prerequisite throughout most public schools for quite some time now, and this is mostly due to young children being more susceptible to the infectious diseases. As mentioned by the New England Journal of Medicine, young children are often at increased risk for illness, death, and related infectious diseases, and vaccine delays may leave them vulnerable. Typically, children ages 5 and under become more susceptible to these infectious diseases due to their immature immune systems, meaning that without the vaccinations against these diseases, a multitude of young children would have to face the harsh symptoms of many of these infectious diseases. And for this reason, mandating vaccinations throughout school systems will provide an extra layer of protection against these volatile diseases. Additionally, if students community-wide are vaccinated, this will create an immunity against the disease that prevents overall deaths, along with significantly reducing the child mortality rate. And this is important because obviously there are certain situations where, due to maybe religious beliefs or health conditions, that certain students would not be able to get these vaccinations. So it's important that the people that can get the vaccinations do in fact get them, so that the people who can't for a serious reason, they are protected and they are not at risk for getting the disease. Another statistic based off of the National Library of Medicine, globally an estimated 700,000 children die annually from vaccine preventable diseases. This demonstrates the true effects these diseases have on children, hence implementing the mandatory vaccinations throughout all schools and why it's so important. Additionally, throughout the process of vaccinations, the body becomes immune to the disease that it was introduced to via vaccination, of course. As a result, the immune system becomes stronger and less susceptible to disease and death. That's how the whole vaccination process works. This enhances the individual's overall health. Another thing is the concept of herd immunity. This is a crucial defense mechanism in public health, particularly with school environments. A high percentage of students are vaccinated, and it creates like a protective shield that extends beyond the individual's immunity. Additionally, according to the National Library of Medicine, this collective immunity is also an efficient method of perpetuating herd immunity, which we know what herd immunity is. However, in order for herd immunity to take place, there has to be enough people vaccinated against the disease. This is why the vaccination requirements have been a standard in many public schools and for them to enroll. Also, herd immunity vastly contributes to the prevention of outbreaks. As explained before, herd immunity happens when there's a high percentage of people who are vaccinated against the disease or immune to it. Beyond the physical health, mandatory vaccination policies play a critical role in supporting educational success. Arguably, one of the most important things for young children or students to go through would be their attendance. For most young children, their learning is directly dependent on their ability to physically be there. According to the Immunize El Paso states that vaccinated children are less likely to contract vaccine-preventable diseases, resulting in fewer sick days, more consistent attendance, and this consistency is important for academic performance and social development. Furthermore, an increased attendance will improve many students' education while also relieving parents and teachers from worrying about the hindrance that sick days might bring. One of the last factors that vaccines really do contribute to is economic factors. Additionally, poor attendance on the behalf of students creates an underlying problem for both parents and teachers. For many families, both parents work. If their children were to fall ill due to infectious diseases, then the only option would be for at least one of those parents to take off work, which may majorly inconvenience some people and their jobs if people heavily rely on them at work. In conclusion, the implementation of mandatory vaccination policies begins to mold not only the public health and educational landscapes, but also the well-being of future generations. When examining the combined health benefits, community protection, and economic advantages, the case for many mandatory vaccinations becomes clear. The decision to require vaccinations throughout schools extend beyond individual choice, but also represents the crucial investments for the educational systems, as well as general public health to succeed.